Okay. So we're on Facebook also. So have you ever heard this, because we celebrated Lord Ram, have you ever heard this story about Ram? Where Hanuman had a benediction that anyone who chanted the name Ram, he would immediately be able to go there. You know this story? Have you ever heard this? Like.
I think it's nice story to hear. So please. Share.
So he heard this like ordinary person chanting Ram, and he went there, but the person was actually answering the call of nature. He was evacuating, and he was chanting the name of Rama, and that really upset Hanuman. And Hanuman went and kicked this person in the back really hard. Said, "You can't chant the name of Ram, you're evacuating." He was very upset. And then Hanuman went to see Ram, and Ram had pain in his back. And he said, "My dear Lord, what happened to you?" And he said, "Well, you should know. You hit me with your foot in the back." And Hanuman was bewildered. And Lord Ram said, "My name is the same as me. So when you kicked that person who was chanting my name, you were kicking me." Have you ever heard that before?
Yes.
You have?
Yes, I've heard this story.
Yeah. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah.
Little different version of it, but yes.
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So, we're waiting for everyone to come, but I will start slow. And by starting slow is I'll give a little background information about this course. And so it gives...
So, if you allow, I would like to just a little bit introduce you, because I think we have a good number of participants now.
Okay.
Do you have the permission to do that?
As long as you do it in 5 seconds.
5 seconds. Do we have Mathura Prabhu also on the call or not?
No, he's on a conference call actually.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. We are very delighted to have His Grace Mahatma Prabhu with us. Mahatma Prabhu was born in California, 1950, right after 19 years. I think teenager, maybe coming out of teenage. He met Sadhupad, and soon he got his first initiation, second initiation. And right now, Prabhu is serving as initiating a spiritual master. So anybody has more interest to talk along that line, you can talk to him tomorrow onward when we have meeting in person. We were planning to have this meeting, the very first meeting in person. Unfortunately, this weather is so fluctuating that didn't happen. But tomorrow onward, we'll have opportunity to associate in person and talk more, any personal, thing and any guidance that you would seek for. So, Prabhu, as you know, is very famous in our society, and for sure he's very known for his musical skills, live recording on Brahma Samhita and other similar items, but also very, very known for the courses that he has developed, the online seminars, training, teaching materials that he has developed. And over the globe, if you talk any devotee, they would tell you that his seminars and courses are very critical. So it will help devotees to really face the day-to-day challenges and how to tackle with that. So very pertinent, very critical, very applicable types of seminars, and there are many to list. But just to name few, japa. I'm sure many of you are aware. Prabhu has given so many seminars on japa, and all of them were extremely liked by devotees. Also seminar on Guru Tattva, humility, vows that we take during marriage. So many critical topics, and we are going to have almost week-long association, and very fortunate to hear on the topic of self-care. I think this is one of the topics that will release a lot. Many devotees gave us feedback that we should hear this seminar and learn out of it and apply in our day-to-day life. So we are looking forward to have that beautiful topic discussed over a week period. So every evening we are going to have home program, and I request all of you to come, because one of the requests that was made that the devotees should come consistently for every session, so that they can get into the depth of the subject and they can understand the breadth and application of this topic, self-care, in our personal life. So I request all of you, right now we have 38 families watching this Zoom session. So I request all of you to please keep on coming. Tomorrow onward we are going to meet in person. Prabhu currently resides in Alachua, one of the very famous temples. And if you like to know more about him, he has 2 web pages. The Sattva Way.
It's actually, I'll put it in the chat what it is. I think maybe we didn't properly update it. So.
Okay, and then the second one is mahatmadas.com.
Mahatmadas.com, yeah. You can get, if you go to mahatmadas.com, it'll connect you.
Yes, so devotees who are interested to know more about Prabhu, I request you to go to that webpage, mahatmadas.com, and find out more about Prabhu. Thank you so much once again, Mahatma Prabhu, coming here.
You're welcome.
Mathura Prabhu, you are not hearing, but welcome here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Without any delay, I would like you to request and continue from here. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Dandat pranams to everybody. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol. So if you look in the chat, there's an app address. And the reason I'm giving it to you is that on that site, I have put many workshops, and we are in the process of finishing the self-care workshop. These are self-paced videos. So whatever we're discussing the next 6 days, it's all going to be on the course that's on the app, so it gives you an opportunity to review what you've learned. But in addition, there's more than we can discuss in these 6 days. And so that's all going to be on the app, and there's going to be more exercises as well. So if you like this course and you want to go further, or you need to take a japa course, a course on vows, forgiveness, sexual purity, it's all there. So thank you all for coming. It's nice to be here in St. Louis for the first time in my life. I've been to Ukraine, I've been to Germany, I've been to Lithuania, I've been to China, I've been to India, I've been to South America, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Hawaii, but I've never been to St. Louis. Today is the day, the first day I've ever been, a memorable day. So, I have a slideshow which I'd like to share. It'll make it a little easier for us. So I'm going to see if we can share it. And are you seeing it?
Yes, it's coming very nice.
I have to make it bigger.
You can see it.
I want to make it bigger. That's better. Okay. So, I'm going to read from the slideshow and maybe go in and out. So, this first slide is asking you, even though you're taking this course for your own benefit, it's really helpful if you take this course as if you're being trained to teach it and share it with others. Maybe not teach the course, but share what you're learning with others. It's really good to try to learn in the mood that I'm going to learn to share. But not only is it good to learn in that mood, there are many, many devotees who aren't here that are going to need to learn or can be helped by the material here. So as we go through the course, you're going to see that. And so you'll realize, oh, yeah, it would do well if I share this, some aspects of this course with others. It would help a lot. So you can enter this course kind of in that mood, that this is going to be good for me, but it's also going to be good for people I'm trying to help. Okay, so I think some of you have seen our book, Japa Affirmations. And in this course, we use affirmations. Affirmations are ways of getting something you're learning from your head into your heart and creating a positive environment. So those of you who use my Japa Affirmations book know the benefit of the affirmations. And so, I'm just going to read what it says here. The affirmations you'll be asked to recite in this course are taken from course principles. So there's a lot of affirmations in this course. They are put into positive statements in order to transfer the teachings from your head to your heart. Affirmations have power when you feel the affirmations while you recite them. So the reason this slide is up here is because when we ask you to recite an affirmation, you might say, oh, I don't really feel or I don't really believe that affirmation. Like we have an affirmation, I get to chant, I want to chant, I love to chant. And then somebody's thinking, well, I don't love to chant. But the idea is you say the affirmation as if you do love to chant. And you try to feel that. And it begins to shift your consciousness, your subtle consciousness, your gross consciousness, and it creates a favorable environment in which you can process what you're learning. And anyway, you'll see, as we go through the affirmations, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But the point is, when we say them, you want to say them as if you actually believe them, as if you're actually feeling them and believing them, because that's how they work. And there have been a lot of skeptics who weren't sold that affirmations are something that's useful or bona fide. But after we came out with the Japa Affirmations book, the people saw that affirmations are very powerful in creating a favorable internal environment with our own consciousness, our own mind. So it's kind of like talking to your mind. Oh mind, just focus on the lotus feet of Krishna. And then the affirmation would be, I focus on the lotus feet of Krishna. So it's like you're circumventing your mind by just stating something positive. You're not even pleading to your mind. You're just saying to your mind, this is what I'm doing. This is how I feel. Isn't that interesting? So it's in our line to counsel and coach yourself, and that's affirmations that have that power. Okay, so we have, on the full course, we have 16 sections. And usually in the shorter course, we may only get to 6 or so. But if you take the whole course online, you go through 16 sessions. And we have, we're developing a teacher training course for those who want to teach this course, that you can get certified. So everywhere around the world, people will be teaching it. Okay. This is a good question, what self-care is and why do we need it? Because in ISKCON, nobody's teaching it, so you may wonder, well, where did it come from? Why didn't anybody teach it before? And it's a good question, but a lot of things never happened in ISKCON that are happening now, and we all scratch our head and say, oh, we should have done that 50 years ago. What were we thinking? So, when the time is right, then Krishna inspires us. So, here's my definition of self-care. Self-care in a Krishna conscious context means to care for all aspects of ourselves in ways that nurture our spiritual life. So all aspects. That means your material aspects and your emotional, your social, intellectual, varna, ashram, everything, and obviously spiritual. This also means avoiding thoughts and actions that are harmful to ourselves, and or allowing others to treat us in harmful ways. You know, sometimes people mistreat us, and sometimes we mistreat ourselves. And it has the same, if not worse, effect when we mistreat ourselves. So avoiding self-mistreatment, avoiding allowing others to mistreat us, and then creating an environment in our lives, creating situations where whatever we do is going to be helpful for our goals. And the really interesting thing about this is the last paragraph. This aligns with the first two principles of surrender, doing what is favorable for devotional service and avoiding what is unfavorable. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's 6 principles of surrender. And the first principle is to accept what is favorable. The second principle is to avoid what is unfavorable. So that's interesting, don't you think? Because that aligns perfectly with how I understand, how I've come to understand self-care. If I am self-caring, would I do anything which was unfavorable for me? Of course not. If I'm demeaning myself, if I'm, working against myself, that could be called self-hatred. I'm doing self-damaging actions or Have you ever had a self-damaging thought? Of course. That's not self-care. Have you ever had an uplifting thought? Yeah, that's self-care. Have you ever gotten upset because of the way someone treated you and then you got really angry? That's not self-care. Letting it go would be self-care, because you think, I'm not going to think about this, it's too disturbing. I'm just going to let it go. That's self-care. How many times have you been upset about something and you didn't let it go? How many times have you looked to get upset, looked to find some bad news? Some people are like that. Did you know that? Some people look to be offended by something that the politicians do or some GBC member does. Some of us look to be offended, so we're like upsetting ourselves. It doesn't make sense, does it? Sometimes people may ask you, like, what do you think about this? And if what they're asking is something that is very discouraging and is very disturbing, a self-caring person would say, I don't really think about that. And someone might say, why don't you think about it? It's important. And say, yeah, but it's so disturbing to me to think about it, and I can't do anything to improve it. So if I just think about it and complain about it and yell and scream about it, it's just going to hurt me. So when you're a self-caring person, you build boundaries around yourself so that you don't do things which are harmful, self-harmful. The biggest enemy is ourself. So, I want to go back to the first paragraph and explain that a little more, because this is very interesting. It means to care for all aspects of our lives. All aspects of ourselves in ways that nurture our spiritual life. So, you might think, well, shouldn't I just care about the spiritual aspects of my life because that's directly impacting my spiritual progress? But it's not true, because material aspects of our life impact our spiritual progress also. So let's say I neglect my health. That is eventually going to have a negative impact on my spiritual life, unless I'm completely transcendental. But if I'm not, it's not easy to chant. It's not easy to serve if you don't feel well, if you don't have energy, obviously. If we have emotional, psychological issues that we don't address, that can be problematic in our relationships, in our marriage, in our ability to serve in groups, in our ability to just get along with ourselves. So, and then what happens, that all spills over into our spiritual life, and our spiritual life suffers. right? If you have problems in your marriage, it spills over into all aspects of your life, doesn't it? If you have financial problems, that spills over because it creates stress and anxiety, and it's hard to be Krishna conscious if you're very stressed out. So we shouldn't think of self-care as just spiritual self-care, because for a devotee, everything is affecting their spiritual life in a good way or a bad way. Okay, so this is an interesting concept. This is called How I Treat Myself. What I tell myself about myself and how I treat myself will affect me much more than what others say about me and how they treat me. Isn't that interesting? I did some research, and what they found is if a person in school is being bullied and a person bullies themselves, like they think, oh, I'm bad, I'm stupid, if a person denigrates themselves, if a person puts themselves down, which is basically what bullying is. If a person does that to themselves, it's more detrimental than being bullied by someone else. So, have you ever bullied yourself? You ever told yourself something's wrong with you? Why'd you do that? That was stupid. If you have, you're actually bullying yourself. And that is going to have more of a detrimental effect than someone telling you the same thing. Isn't that interesting? So let's read this quote on the bottom. Know that others cannot harm you unless you harm yourself. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was talking about being mistreated and saying, okay, it's not the mistreatment that's the problem. It is how we respond to it. And I heard this beautiful saying, it's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the snake poison that kills you. It's not the snake bite that kills you, it's the snake poison. So what does that mean? Well, it's not the person who bites you that kills you, it's you releasing poison on yourself, your anger, your resentment. That's what kills you. Isn't that interesting? You're not going to see the slideshow on Facebook. Can you put the Zoom address in the chat? Just what to type in, the numbers, and then I'll just give it to people who are online if they want to come online. Can you do that, Ramacharya?
Yes, I'm doing it, Prabhu, right now.
Okay,
I just posted in the...
so all of you who are on Facebook, if you want to come onto the Zoom and see the slideshow. So the number is 524-117-9062. And what's the password? I'm going to say that again.
343171.
So I'm going to say that again slow. 524. I have to write it down. 524-117-9062. 524-117-9062. And the password is, you're going to have to write this down also. Somebody who's on Facebook, you could just write it in the message. Can somebody write it? This is the password, 343171. 343171. Maybe I should write it, huh? I haven't used Facebook in so long, I don't even know how to use chat. Anyway, it's 343171. 524-117-9062. And the password 343171. Okay. So, isn't that a beautiful statement? It's not the snake bite that kills you. It's the venom. So it's not what a a person does that really hurts us, it's that we are processing it in a way that is making us upset. And we could process it in another way, right? So a self-caring person would not allow themselves to get easily upset, if not upset at all, unless there was a good reason to be upset, a reason that would be of benefit to them or to others. So people bite us all the time. People say things or do things that are hurtful. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, nobody can hurt you unless you hurt yourself. They can bite you, but it's you who releases the poison, not them. Isn't that interesting? So we're getting a little bit of idea what it means to be self-caring. That we care about how we process things. So we want to process things in a way that's not harmful. So maybe when we're hurt, when we're in a difficult situation, we start thinking, how can I deal with this in a way that is going to help me, uplift me, and not disturb or destroy me. Okay, so we'll continue. So, I want to read to you, this is interesting. I'll just read this. Devotee care equals self-care. When we speak about compassionately and lovingly caring for devotees, everyone appreciates this idea. But when we speak about compassionately and lovingly caring for ourselves, some devotees wonder whether this is actually part of our philosophy or whether it is some secular psychology, because we're meant to be selfless. So if we start talking about caring for ourselves, some devotees think maybe that's not what we're supposed to do. Maybe it's not right. Maybe it's not our philosophy. In this course, we'll discover how self-care, self-love, self-compassion, and self-acceptance are fundamental to our philosophy and spiritual practice, that self-care is within our philosophy. The teachings are there. And what I think is really important to understand is that the way our books are written, they're not written as practical guides to anything per se. It's like you have to put the dots together to extract processes and understand how it's practical. They're not written that way. It's not the Bhagavatam first canto isn't like 10 steps to this. And then the second canto is 5 steps to letting go. The next one is 6 steps to a good marriage. It's not like that. So that's why sometimes devotees think, well, where's the self-care? What verse? Where is it? I don't see it. But, let me ask you a question. When you chant japa every morning, what are you doing? You're being really selfish, aren't you? I mean, you're just chanting japa. You're not doing anything for anybody, right? You're just taking care of your own spiritual life, right? Now I could say, oh, that is so selfish. All you care about is yourself. And you'll say, no, I'm doing this on the order of my guru. And I'm doing this so that I'm developed the power, empowerment and compassion and desire to serve others. It's not selfish, but I have to do it for myself, right? So sadhana is very self-caring, isn't it? It's just really about purifying ourselves. But that self-caring naturally expands, right? So it's a devotee can be selfish, but never selfish. He can be selfish, but he's never selfish, because his selfishness is only to maintain himself so he can better serve, right? So So here's what's so interesting, I find so interesting. Like I said, if we say devotee care, everyone's, yes, devotee care. We should have a devotee care department in every temple. And then you say self-care, and then someone says, or many people say, where is that? So I had some fun with this idea in the next slides, and I think you will appreciate this. So this is the devotee care mission statement. I'm going to read this. This is taken off the devotee care website. We strive to care for the spiritual, emotional, physical, and social well-being of the devotees of ISKCON. We want devotees to be encouraged, inspired, and empowered to be happy and make progress in Krishna consciousness, and thus be enthused to expand Srila Prabhupada's mission. That's beautiful, right? We want to help devotees. What does it say? We want to care for devotees' spiritual lives, emotional lives, physical lives, and social well-being, social lives. Why? Because we want devotees to be encouraged, inspired, and empowered. Facilitated, help them to be happy. And so in this inspired state, they can help others. Now, here's the fun, my dear devotees. I took this same statement and I made up a devotee self-care mission statement from this statement. So I'm going to read it. It is really interesting. It's really interesting to compare them both. I strive to care for my spiritual, emotional, physical, and social well-being in order that I can be well situated, inspired, and happy in Krishna consciousness and motivated to expand Srila Prabhupada's mission. So what did I do? I just took out, we strive to help devotees, and replaced it with, I strive to help to care for myself. So, in case you didn't notice, you're a devotee. Therefore, if you care for yourself, you're doing devotee care, right? Like, if you don't care for yourself, there's no guarantee anyone else will, right? Isn't it? Yes? I mean, like, that is often a fact that sometimes nobody cares for us, or our spiritual master's not around, or senior devotees, and it's just us. Well, when you're doing devotee self-care, you're taking care of a devotee. So, what do you think? Self-care, devotee care, it's the same thing. It's just done towards ourselves. So it's really, you ever heard that example Prabhupada gave? He said everyone must fly their own airplane. In other words, it's like, I can instruct, Prabhupada said, I can instruct you, but that's all I can do. I can't force you. You have to fly your own airplane. So that flying of your own airplane, the receiving of the instructions of the Guru, in the heart of a devotee who has self-care, those instructions will be followed. Because it's the self-caring devotee who will take those instructions and utilize them to care for his spiritual life, to care for his well-being. Yet otherwise, what is the value? What is the value of the words of the spiritual master if you don't care to follow them? So here, this is a little mantra for all. Why don't we all read this together? If you're muted, you can read it with me, so just we don't hear you. And this can be a little bit like an affirmation. So let's read it together. I strive to care for my spiritual... Turn off your... Gopishwar, turn off your mic. Everyone has to turn their mic off because it'll be cacophony if we don't. Okay, let's say it together. I strive to care for my spiritual, emotional, physical, and social well-being in order that I can be well situated, inspired, and happy in Krishna consciousness, and motivated to expand Srila Prabhupada's mission. Sound good? Sounds good to me. Okay. We're going to go till 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, and who knows what time it is in the other part of the world. If you're in Europe and you're up, it's late in the morning, or you got up very early. Okay. This slide is entitled, Self-Sacrifice is Not Self-Neglect. We make many personal sacrifices to serve. But devotional service does not mean that we sacrifice our material or spiritual well-being in the name of surrender. Surrender and self-sacrifice are not synonyms for self-neglect. So I thought it was necessary that we don't destroy ourselves in the name of self-sacrifice and surrender. We don't burn ourselves out. You know, it's like, I think when I was a young devotee, you want to hear something? This is like the secret history of the Hare Krishna movement. San Francisco, 1970, Rath Yatra. Right? It should take about 2 months to prepare well for a Rath Yatra. That's like the only Rath Yatra in ISKCON. That was like, I don't know, at least 10,000 people were in the parade, or 15. And they didn't have the cart. They assembled and deassembled the cart. Just deassembled, is that a word? They assembled and disassembled. Yeah, disassembled. It's late at night. I forgot how to speak English now. Disassembled. They assembled and disassembled the cart. So it's a big thing to build a cart, right? And their program was they would prepare the whole Rath Yatra, everything in 2 weeks, start to finish, right? So the temple president, 3 days before the Rath Yatra, the temple president said, I'm not going to sleep for 3 days. I'm not going to sleep for 3 days. I'm not going to sleep for 3 days, and I'm just going to stay up and work 24/7 around the clock. And so, you know, if you don't sleep for 3 days and you're not like very transcendental, what happens? At a certain point, you just crash, you get sick, and it takes days to recuperate, right? So the idea was, the mood was like, burn out in Krishna service. It was like, sacrifice everything, you know. Sacrifice your health. Sacrifice any personal convenience whatsoever. Just, you know. So it's like, we thought surrender was like, burn yourself out. And a lot of people burned out and left bhakti because they burned out. So, like Rita Anandamaharaj once said, he said, surrender doesn't mean to surrender your intelligence, like to not use your intelligence. So, we have a little mantra on the bottom. I don't sacrifice my well-being in the name of surrender. I don't sacrifice my well-being in the name of surrender. Can we say that together? Make sure you're muted and we'll say it together. I don't sacrifice my well-being in the name of surrender. Right? That would be a big mistake, because then you would be really not good for anybody, right? If you burn yourself out. So, you think, well, but we're supposed to self-sacrifice, yeah. Intelligently. Enthusiasm means act intelligently. Okay. So, this next slide is entitled The Bad Logic of Self-Neglect. It's a story. I'll just tell you the story. It's more interesting, and I will... I'm just going to get off the slideshow if I can. I can't even get off now. Oh well. Yeah, I can. Wait. How do I stop sharing? Oh, stop share. Okay. So there's this. The person has an appointment and they're late. So he's accompanied by another associate or worker or whatever. And they've got to go like 60 miles and they got to get there like in an hour. And he's got like, half a gallon of gas. So he rushes off and his friend says, "We need gas." Then he says, "I don't have time to get gas." So what happens? He runs out of gas. And then they're caught in the middle of nowhere and they have to go back, find a gas station and get the gas and go back. So he wastes hours and he's late like that. So, has that ever happened to you? I don't have time for A, B, and C to take care of myself, and then we run out of gas. Has that ever happened to you? If you are a bona fide ISKCON devotee doing service in the Hare Krishna movement, you must have run out of gas sooner or later. Yes?
Big time.
If you're a brahmachari living in ISKCON pre-2000, you ran out of gas a lot. If you were a brahmachari in ISKCON 1970, you were kind of eternally out of gas. So we were, you understand what I'm saying? It's like, you ever get into this, like, I don't have time to chant my rounds now, I have service. I'll put my rounds off for later. It doesn't work. Prabhu, I'm so busy I don't have time to read. It doesn't work like that. Every time we make that decision to neglect ourselves, our spiritual life suffers. And we it's kind of like every time you do something unhealthy, it affects you negatively. Maybe not so noticeably, but it affects you negatively. And over time, your health wears down where it didn't have to. So it's something like that. So don't run out of gas just because you're late. Don't avoid going to the gas station. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing the slideshow. I think what I'll do is show one or two more slides and then we could take some time for questions. We probably have some questions. Okay, so let me see if this is actually the next slide. Yeah. So this is just a little overview of what motivated me to teach this course, and maybe some of these will relate to you, maybe all of these will relate to you. I noticed that one or more of the following problems were common in devotees' lives. Devotees were expecting too much from themselves and becoming discouraged when they failed to reach their often lofty goals. It's like I think, by the end of this year I'll be up here, and when the end of the year comes I'm still down here, and it's quite discouraging. And you start disliking yourself and even becoming discouraged because you're not as Krishna conscious as you would like to be, as you thought you would be. You may feel like, what's the point? And devotees can get very hard on themselves by expecting themselves to be like superhuman when they're not. And just being themselves, just the conditioned souls that we are, could be quite discouraging. Have you ever seen that before? Has that ever happened to you? Did you ever get discouraged? Because you're not like as Krishna conscious as you want to be? As quickly as you want to be? Yeah. If that's never happened to you, I don't believe it. It happens to all of us. Doesn't it? Has it happened to you? Yeah. At least it happens to everyone in this room. Okay. Perfectionist devotees were upset with themselves for not doing things perfectly or being perfect. If you're a perfectionist, joining the Hare Krishna movement is a challenge, because now it's perfectionism on steroids. Before it was just like material perfection, but now it's like, I have to be spiritually perfect. And so it can be very discouraging when we realize we're not perfect. And and it's like if you're a perfectionist, then you're trying to like do everything perfectly instead of just being perfectly sincere. You need to do externally everything perfectly, and that's not possible. Devotees felt guilty, ashamed, depressed, and or discouraged if they broke a principle or occasionally manifested human weakness. Even sometimes we've seen devotees who didn't break a principle, who just thought about breaking a principle, become extremely discouraged. And so, self-care, what it means, self-compassion is part of it. What it means is when you fail, you don't beat yourself up. You're a little more understanding. Yes, I'm a conditioned soul. I'm trying. Sometimes I will fall. Prabhupada dealt with it that way. But if we're not self-caring, we'll think, I'm bad, I'm useless, I hate myself, look at me, and so forth. So, guilt in a religious movement is quite common because the goals are so high, and naturally, when you don't reach the goals, you feel guilty. And your guru gives you so many instructions, can you do all those instructions? You feel guilty. That's normal, but it's not necessary, neither is it necessarily good. Oftentimes it's very bad. Okay. This is a very sad one, the next one. Devotees felt unworthy of Krishna's love and or that Krishna didn't need or care about them. Like, why would Krishna care about me? I'm just down here, forgetting him, trying to imitate him. I don't forget him. I remember him trying to imitate him. It's just, not obeying him. So why would Krishna care about me? A lot of devotees feel that way. I didn't do anything to deserve his love, so why would he love me? Devotees suffered from low self-esteem, becoming more concerned whether others loved and appreciated them than if they loved and appreciated themselves. This is what happens when you have low self-esteem. You're always trying to get recognition from others instead of giving it to yourself. You don't give it to yourself. You think there's something wrong with you. You don't appreciate yourself. So you're always waiting for others to build you up because you're like depleted inside. You can't recognize your own worth, and so you need others to give it to you. And so, we should be loving and appreciating others, but we want them to love and appreciate us. That's the problem when you have low self-esteem. And then the other problem is you think humility and low self-esteem are the same when they're not. And so you could go more into low self-esteem in the name of humility, and it just, you end up like really harming yourself, or you can harm yourself. Devotees neglected their physical, emotional, and or spiritual needs, thinking that fulfilling such needs were either a waste of time, selfish, or not part of our philosophy. So I think we discussed that enough. Let's go to the next one. Devotees focused on succeeding in one area of their lives at the cost of failing in another area. So, what does this mean? It means that I want to succeed in this area, but in order to put all the time and energy into that, I got to neglect something on this side. So maybe something on this side is going to go. So part of my life is going to fail so that I can succeed here. So this is called succeed by failing. So you ruin some part of your life to fail, to succeed in another part. It doesn't make sense, does it? A self-caring person wouldn't do that. Yeah. I'll achieve success in this area at the cost of my health, or the cost of my career, or the cost of my marriage, or the cost of my sanity, or whatever. So a self-caring person would balance their life. They would make sure that all aspects of their life are healthy. It's healthy in family, it's healthy at work, it's healthy physically, emotionally, it's healthy in the temple, it's healthy with the sadhana and service. Devotees felt that berating or even hating themselves was good for them, as it was a sign of humility. Have you seen that? It's like, my dear devotees, I have to say something. We have a hard time with humility, like just understanding what it is, and therefore we do things like this, thinking, if I just walk around with my head down and tell everybody I'm the most fallen, I guess I'm humble, right? But if you actually believe you're the most fallen and you don't have prema, that's not healthy, because only those with prema would think that way. And if you don't have prema and you think that way, it's imitation, and it may be very unhealthy, or maybe a sign of an unhealthy state of consciousness. So hating ourselves is not Krishna consciousness. And the last one I saw, devotees felt that self-acceptance or self-love had nothing to do with Krishna consciousness, so they just didn't do it. Okay, so that brings us to about 9 minutes before class is meant to end. I would like to open it up for questions. I mean, if there's no questions, that's fine. I can go on. But I thought, let's stop here and just see if anyone has any questions. You could either speak them, raise your hand and speak them, or you can put them in the chat. And then we'll see. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, I have one question.
Okay.
One actually I have.
Just 1 minute, if I can interrupt, sorry for that. If you like to turn your camera on so that Prabhuji can see you. He has come here to speak, to give you his association to all of us. So we should not be refraining ourselves, taking our association. So if you can, kindly turn your camera on. Sorry for interruption. Please go ahead.
Is self-care, before I turn on my camera, let me just put the question first.
Coming from Krishna Prasad.
Is self-care and secular psychology, we coined the term secular psychology in one of the slides. Are those the same? Or is there any difference between self-care and secular psychology terms?
Well, you can have self-care in the secular psychological world, but it's going to be different from the kind of self-care we're talking about. But I think it's not, you'll see from this class, it's not a secular psychological topic. It's like very much at the heart of Krishna consciousness. It's just that some people misunderstood it to be secular psychology, because words like self-love, self-compassion, self-care, you don't find Prabhupada talking about that, or rare, using those particular words. But he actually talks about it. It's just not those words. So that's where devotees misunderstood. They said, because, like if you study Buddhist philosophy, there's a lot about self-compassion. Not just that you're compassionate to others, but you're compassionate to yourself. So that's just a misunderstanding. In the secular world, when they talk about self-care, they'll talk about things like de-stressing, doing things that you enjoy, that give you pleasure and happiness, not just like working, work. But so that is a form of self-care, but it doesn't lead to Krishna consciousness. So for us, self-care is housed within a Krishna conscious context. When a devotee performs self-caring activities, if it's done in the right consciousness, in the right way, it just helps them in their spiritual life.
Okay, well, thank you. And one just quick clarification on the same note, Prabhu. How this self-care is going to, is it going to impact the three modes of nature in any way?
It's going to impact everything in your life.
Yes.
Every single thing. And you're going to find out later how that's going to be. It'll become obvious. It'll become obvious to you. Because, well, I'll give you a hint now. If you are struggling with anything, whatever it might be, just I don't want to eat sweets, or I want to be kinder, I don't want to get angry, whatever it is, I want to stop criticizing, I want to exercise more, I want to get up earlier. And you ask yourself this question, if I had more self-care, could I do that? And the answer is always going to be yes. So it's like, I don't care enough. Well, it's like, I would exercise, but I don't care enough. So my question would be, who don't you care enough about? Or if you just say, I don't care, why don't you just say what you mean? I don't care enough about myself. Because when we say, I don't care, it's like, well, it's not like it's an impersonal thing. You make it impersonal, and you just trick yourself. Well, yeah, I don't care that much about exercise, and you're not healthy. Why not just say, I don't care enough about myself to do the things that would make me healthy? Right? So if you put it in that context, you could see that anything you need to do better or anything you need to detach from or give up is going to be easier if you had this consciousness that this will be good for me and I want to do things which are good for me. That empowers that. All the way to the point where self-care is even recommended for breaking addictions like alcohol and drugs. Because you're destroying yourself through these addictions, right? And so if you had more self-love, obviously you would stop destroying yourself. You never would have destroyed yourself in the first place. So it's an interesting and amazing reality of how many things in our lives would improve if we just cared more. Let all devotees struggle to one degree or another with japa. That's like pretty normal, you know. Even if your japa is good, some days it's not good. And so, think about this. If you had more self-care, do you think your japa would be better? Like if, you know, you got up in the morning and said, you know, I really want to go back to Godhead in this lifetime. I think, you know, that's the gift I could give myself in this life. I really want to nurture myself. Do you think that would improve your japa? Of course it would.
Yeah.
Because, you know, so that's the beauty of self-care. It's just when you ask that question, would my japa be better? Could I get up when I want to get up? Could I control this or that if I had more self-care? The answer was always going to be yes. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is.
It is amazing. And you can all just begin to think, like anything that you're having difficulty doing, just ask yourself, could I do it better if I had a little more self-care? Or anything you want to give up, could I give it up if I had more self-care? And you realize, yeah, of course. Yes, absolutely. So then what's the problem? Problem is I don't care enough about myself. Because if I did, I probably would give this up, and I probably would do this. You want to hear something really interesting, which just, I guess it's obvious, but it wasn't obvious when I first started teaching. You know, every couple has difficulties. Even good relationships and great marriages have difficulties because you're always navigating and growing and changing and working together and compromising and trying to understand one another and help one another and serve one another and so forth. And sometimes in relationships it gets difficult and you just don't feel like compromising. You just like, I don't want to do that. This is important to me. I don't want to do that for my wife or my husband. And then I began thinking, but if your wife or husband is unhappy, you're unhappy. If you stand your ground in a relationship and the result of standing your ground is it creates a very disturbed environment at home, do you suffer? Yes, of course you do, right? So if we care about ourselves, wouldn't we care about our relationship with our spouse? Wouldn't we want to make our spouse happy? Because if she or he is happy, we'll be happier. If she or he is unhappy, we'll be unhappy. So if I care about myself, I would care about making the relationship better. Instead of saying, I don't care about the relationship. It's up to you. If you want a good relationship, yeah, I don't care. But now she's unhappy or he's unhappy and you're unhappy. Isn't that interesting? That,
Yes, but
like, there's so many things that are within our self-interest that we don't realize. You know, do you ever get in an argument and you're like, you have to be right? It's like, you know, you rather kill yourself than be wrong. So, and what's the result of that? Your mind's just disturbed. You disturb this other person, you know. So sometimes we're so foolish that we would do something self-destructive just to be right, just so the ego could get, you know, a prize. And then we end up suffering. And that's not self-caring. Winning a fight isn't self-caring. That's just ego. That's just the ego, you know, taking over. So when you start thinking that way, you'll think, well, you know, what is going to be the most beneficial for me, just even if I'm speaking in a selfish sense, for me and my spiritual life? then you'll start thinking, well, probably I should apologize, or probably I should not worry about this and have to win. That would be better. So that's how self-caring can help you. And Samir is asking how to start caring, and that will tomorrow, the next day, we'll talk about. But one answer how to start caring is to stop not caring. Like, okay, we'll jump ahead just to get you all thinking about this. But some of us don't think we're worth caring about ourselves. We just think, oh, why should I care about myself? I'm not worth it, right? So if you think you're not worth it, then it doesn't matter if you care about yourself. Why would you think you're not worth it? Well, maybe that's how you thought in your last life. Maybe in this life there were events that make you believe that. And then if you think you're not worth caring for yourself, then you've got these samskars that make it really difficult. So you have to change those samskars. You have to be convinced that you are worthy. And I think we're all worthy of being Krishna conscious, at least taking care of ourselves. Right? If you weren't worthy, your guru would kick you out. Right? And I haven't kicked you out yet, Samir, so you must be worthy. So, your guru would give up on you. Occasionally a guru does give up on a disciple who doesn't follow. But if your guru thinks you're worth it, then you might as well think you're worth it also. And once you think you're worth it, that's where the self-care comes in. If you think you're not worth it, then you don't care. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But all of us, from time to time, have said something like, I know I should do this, but I don't care. Have you ever said that? Yeah, really good if I did this, but I don't really care. You're just saying, I don't care about myself. I know I should do this, but I don't really care that much. So you have to get out of that to be self-caring. You can't not care about yourself and be self-caring, obviously. Right? So you have to, work through your mind and consciousness so you care about yourself. And, part of the problem is that like in some cultures, you're taught to care about others and not to care about yourself. That's how you were raised. So now when you talk about self-care, it's like your head gets spun around. It says, I never thought that way. But that's why I was saying, well, just try to understand, what do you think your japa is? That's like self-care in its highest. And what do you do during japa? Who are you serving? Yourself. That's it. You're taking care of yourself. Of course, you're connecting with Krishna as part of that process, but it's really focused on your own well-being. And so there has to be a sufficient degree of focus on our well-being to advance in spiritual life. So then we can serve others. Right? And so there's nobody who's not worthy of Krishna consciousness. So if any of you think you're not worthy of giving yourself Krishna consciousness, that is a completely erroneous idea. It makes no sense when you think of it in terms of Mahaprabhu giving Krishna consciousness to everyone. Then it doesn't make any sense, does it? Like Mahaprabhu is giving it to everyone except Samira. Like, what verse is that? I haven't read that verse yet. Have you, Samira, read it? No, it doesn't exist. Right? So the whole idea of I'm not worthy, okay, I'm not worthy. Who is worthy? Is Mahaprabhu going to give us his mercy whether we're worthy or not? Of course. So if he's going to give us his mercy whether we're worthy or not, I guess we're worthy of his mercy even if we're unworthy of it, but we're worthy of it because he's giving it. So we're unworthily worthy, if that helps you. Right? And you cannot make yourself unworthy because Mahaprabhu's giving the mercy. All you could do is not take it. But you can't make yourself unworthy of the mercy because he's giving it. Now, if I'm stupid enough to think I'm not worthy of the mercy, I'm not going to take it, that's my problem. but he's giving it, which means he thinks we're worthy of it. Right? So we'll go through this tomorrow, but the whole challenge is to care enough about ourselves and to feel ourselves worthy on some level to be open to do those things which are going to help us come closer to Krishna. And Kalindi has a question. What to do if not having an argument would be detrimental to us one way or another? Yeah, then have the argument. Yeah, it's not having or not having, it's doing what's best. But you all know sometimes there's a situation you should walk away from and you don't, and you regret it later. A more self-caring person would have a self-caring person has clear boundaries. They know where the lines are. They don't step over them because they'll suffer. Okay, we have 2 hands up. One from iPhone and one from Divya Hemanga. So, Ramacharya, you want to navigate? Unmute one of them?
They can unmute themselves also if you want.
Okay. So,
whoever would like to give the chance, they will unmute.
Divya Hemanga has just appeared. Yes.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I had one question.
You just muted yourself, Divya.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had one question, Prabhuji, regarding the boundaries of the self-care.
Yes.
So, like as we are in this, this difficult, not even difficult, like this time, so it's very much possible that this self-care can slowly, take us to like the place or the time where we'll get like self, we'll start self, will not say self, but when we do too much self-care, then maybe we start neglecting the service, or we get like, we get a chance to say no for the service or try to like escape.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah. That's a good
like,
question.
What's the thin line in between self-care and trying to escape from the
Service,
is it not
responsibility.
is it not like it's taking us, like too much self-care can take us away from Krishna consciousness or from our service like that?
Well, I think the answer is simple. If you truly care for yourself, you would never go away from Krishna consciousness. So the answer is, if you truly care for yourself, you would do those things that would rejuvenate you so you could do service, or maybe even more service. So that would be proper self-care. You're caring for yourself in a context which is to help you be a better devotee. So that's why you could never do self-care that would be detrimental, because it's not the reason you're doing it in the first place. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go out and buy a Mercedes-Benz, that'll be self-care, and then I'm going to build a swimming pool in my backyard, that's self-care, and then I'm going to buy a jet, and that, so I can fly anywhere I want, and that's self-care. It's not like that. It's like, it's nourishing yourself in a way that's favorable for your bhakti. And, favorable materially also in a way that's favorable for your bhakti. So, not self-care that's not favorable. Right? And it's going to be different, Maybe for you, going on a vacation to Florida would just help you, like, de-stress, decompress, and maybe you would chant better rounds. There'll be less on your mind, or you'll be less stressed or something, So someone else may say, well, if I went on a vacation like that, I would just, like, spend the whole day at Disneyland, And so everybody's different. So you find what works for you. And it may not work for everybody. But if the motive is to increase my spiritual life, then you're in the right context, then you'll never have a problem. And you do more self-care, it'll just help you serve more. Does that make sense?
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you. I have one more little clarification, Prabhuji.
Okay.
So this self-care, like in case of family, how to balance like the, self-care and like as you said, self-care for me may not have the same definition as the self-care of my partner, my husband. He does not have the same definition of self-care.
Yeah.
So it might vary from person to person or like.
Yeah.
So how can we create that balance? Like say,
Well,
for example, we want to do a service. So I really want to do that service, but he doesn't want me to do that service or something like that.
That's kind of more of a marriage question than a self-care question.
It's like he gets, he doesn't. Okay, maybe I'm not able to frame the question properly.
Well, I know everything about marriage, so you didn't even have to ask a question and I could answer it. But the number one problem in marriages is communication breakdown. So the problem you expressed is actually a communication breakdown, because you should be able to talk about it. And it's like, okay, if this is what is self-care for you and it's not for him, and you communicated it, you can respect that. It's not a problem. It shouldn't be a problem, if you can talk about it. That's the thing. And talking about it is self-care, because you'll both come out better by discussing it and understanding one another and respecting one another.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Okay. Paydana. Is that it? Paydana?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hari Bolo.
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu. Okay. So, thank you very much to coming here at the same place all the way from Florida, Prabhu. And I have one question. So, how could you say some lines who doesn't believe or doesn't know or is not in Krishna conscious about self-care?
Now what you do? At the end of this course, you'll know what to say.
Okay.
But self-care is every instruction Krishna gives in the Bhagavad Gita is for your benefit, for my benefit, for our benefit, right? Every instruction. Would Krishna give an instruction that's not for our benefit? So ultimately, every instruction in every shastra is for our benefit, right? If we take those instructions, we'll benefit, right?
Yeah.
So then, in that context, you could say every instruction in Scripture is about self-care, in the broadest sense. Because every instruction is to help us get closer to Krishna. Getting closer to Krishna is the highest form of self-care we could do. Therefore, every instruction is for our benefit. And if you take that instruction, then you're being self-caring. If you get the instruction of Shastra and you do nothing, you're not being self-caring. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like everything Krishna says is for our well-being. And Krishna is saying, do this, it's good for you. And if I do what Krishna says, I'm caring for myself. Right? And if I avoid what he's saying, then I'm harming myself. Right?
Okay.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Thank you.
So you could explain to them what self-care isn't, then they can understand more easily what it is. If I avoid Krishna's instructions, that's not self-care. That's self-destruction. And if avoiding his instructions is self-destructive, then following his instructions is self-building. You can call it something else, self-nurturing. Okay, Gopishwar, you're next. Gopishwar, are you there?
He has also posted his question in the chat.
Okay.
Like to look at.
How self-care is not selfishness. How far is this true? 100%. Self-care, in a material sense, could be selfish. And, if you... The talks on self-care that I have heard in the secular world definitely border on selfishness. It's all about, but if you're not a devotee, everything's selfish. Even selflessness is selfish. Isn't it? Because it's all about feeling good. And, So, devotees are not selfish. Right? So if a devotee does something which looks like selfish, the reason they're doing it is so they can serve better. Isn't it? Like, oh, yesterday was a Ekadasi, I needed to chant extra rounds. Oh, Prabhu, you're so selfish, chanting extra rounds. Like, we don't think that way. We think, oh, good, chant extra rounds. That'll help you. You'll be more Krishna conscious. So we maybe unconsciously are saying, yeah, being more Krishna conscious is self-care, and it's good. And doing anything that helps you in your Krishna consciousness is caring about yourself, and that's good. So they're not like two different ideas. Like, what if I'm self-caring and I won't be Krishna conscious? What is the meaning of self-care for a devotee? It's to be Krishna conscious. That question is an impossibility. A devotee wouldn't do things that would make them less Krishna conscious. So if they're taking care of themselves, their health, their diet, their job, their ashram, their sadhana, all that, if they're taking care of themselves, devotees aren't selfish. They're only doing that to better serve. So once you're in that context, then you never have to worry about anything being selfish. Doesn't matter what you do. If you made $10 billion, right, what would you do with it? The first thing you do is you fly into Mayapur with a big, suitcase of money. And you go, here, finish it, in 10 days. It's over, we got everything. And then the next thing you do is you build a temple in St. Louis, and then you go build one in Cincinnati, and you go build one in Cleveland. So, because that's your context, that everything is for Krishna. Otherwise, people might say, oh yeah, you get $10 billion, just go to your head, you'll become a nasty person, you'll live an extravagant life, you'll become mean. That could be, but generally that wouldn't happen to a devotee, right? Yeah, you might live a little more extravagantly, but it's not like... If he's a good devotee, no. Is that okay?
Thank you, Guru. Thank you, Guru.
So, Rukmini Ravana, ¿cómo está? Buenas noches. Hare Krishna. You have to unmute yourself. You're going to speak in Spanish and I'll translate?
English, it's okay. It's okay. I'm okay in English.
Yeah.
About burning out.
Yes.
Like we see devotees who burn out. Like I saw, like Trivandrum Prabhu, I don't know, maybe Kadambakananda Swami, that they did everything to Krishna until their body was completely finished. Sometimes I have this kind of dream, like, I want to burn out myself to Krishna too. So like this I can go back to God.
Yeah.
But also, like in between, like, for example, wake up early in the morning to choose, like, do I sleep a little longer or do I wake up early because this is the only time I can chant my rounds?
Yeah. These are really difficult choices because they're both self-caring. Getting up early is self-caring and sleeping sufficiently is self-caring. So I think if you speak to any older devotee, they will tell you that burning out is not the way. And if they had to do it over again, they would have taken better care of themselves. I'm like 100% sure of that. Now, there may be a few devotees that are kind of in martyr consciousness, so they want to burn out. And if they could, just burn themselves out and die in Krishna consciousness, that would be their highest ecstasy. So, I don't doubt that there's devotees like that, and I don't doubt that they can do it. But for most devotees, it backfires because you're not doing something that's sustainable. So my analysis, after thinking deeply about this, is just the word sustainable. That's what you want. You want sustainability over the long run. It's easy to be a devotee for 5-10 years, but to be a devotee and advancing your whole life, you have to live in a way that's sustainable day after day. And if you bite off more than you chew and eventually burn out, then it's almost like breaking a leg in a sport, and then you've got to spend months, healing. And sometimes it doesn't always heal right. And so, look at this example. We had in the 1980s, we had the most successful and powerful devotees in our movement. Prabhupada made them gurus. And in each of those zones, incredible things were happening. Like buildings were being bought, books were being distributed, massive numbers of devotees joining. Lots and lots of money coming in. These devotees were extremely successful. And then some of those devotees were unable to maintain their Krishna consciousness and they left. And their zones suffered tremendously. And those devotees worked very hard, and every one of them burnt themselves out. Otherwise they wouldn't have crashed that way. And from my perspective, having lived through that and saw it firsthand more than once. I was personally working with 3 different of those gurus who fell. So I had, bird's eye view and contact. And after they left, my first thought was, if they had taken better care of themselves, so that they would not have burned out, would not have fallen, and could have continued, although continued slower, because they're taking more care of themselves. Today, those zones would be 10 times what they are now. 100% for sure. So I think that speaks everything to me, because those zones crashed. And in every one of those zones, except maybe one, has not returned to what it was in 1986 or whenever they left, 1999. They've never been able to recuperate. Whereas if those devotees just took more care of themselves and moved much slower, today those zones would be way more successful. So, that's why I think the word sustainability is the key word. Does that make sense to you? Or do you have a doubt or question?
No, it makes sense. It completely makes sense. Yes, it makes sense.
I think
it's about myself.
Yourself.
Because I need to more my sadhana.
So just
my body says no.
Sustainability. Yeah, you can burn your body out. See what's going on is we have this dichotomy going on between what we want to do in our heart and what we're actually capable of doing. And often what we want to do in our heart is much greater than what we're capable of doing. So there's this conflict going on. So it's like, if I do what my body needs, I sleep 7 hours or 8 hours. If I do what my heart needs, I sleep 5 hours. But if everybody needs different amount of sleep. But let's say you need 6 and you sleep 5, or you need 7 and you sleep 6. Eventually it gets up to you, because if your body needs it and you're not giving it, you'll suffer, for sure. So, sometimes we have to just confront the reality that I want to do A, but it's not sustainable, and it could even be harmful. And I just have to be more advanced to be able to sustain A, and now I have to make the B choice, because that's what's necessary. But that's for you to decide. And only very, very advanced devotees can sustain high levels of austerity for long periods of time, from what I've seen, and not suffer from it. And even those devotees who cut down on their sleep, they usually make up for it in the afternoon. They don't just push, and become ill and so forth. Okay, so I think we should probably end now. We went over time answering your questions. We'll see you tomorrow. I don't know if it's in person or not, but we'll...
So I can just make a quick
Yeah.
announcement about tomorrow. First thing, I would like to really express my heart that we did not miss anything. I thought that the weather is going to be heavy on us and we are going to lose one day of association. But I think we did not miss anything. So I'm so happy about that. Also very indebted for all the devotees who are joining us online. Thank you so much for your association. And today we got the idea that how much more we have to plan to serve you all tomorrow onward. So we are going to keep Zoom, we'll try to keep Facebook and any other means of online media so that we can, social media so that we can serve you. So please come on time tomorrow. Every day 7 p.m. CST, we'll start the session. Last but not least, very thankful for Mahatma Prabhu to come here and really, giving us his heartful association. Mathura Prabhu in the back, I can see you. You are there. Thank you so much. So we'll resume tomorrow. Please take good rest. And thank you all. Please keep on coming so that we can learn more out of this topic, self-care. Vanchkalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Vasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo.
See you tomorrow.
Koti Vaishnavindi ki jai. His Grace Mahatma Prabhu ki jai. Simple Bhakti Vindi ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna Prabhupada ki jai.
Prabhu just announced